The Song of Promises, Chapter 1, An Impossible Awakening. John's head felt like it had been cracked open and stirred up with a blender. Through the fog of pain and vertigo, he struggled to recall how many whiskey sours he'd sucked down at McGinty's pub last night. Had to have been a new record even for him. But as his vision wavered into focus, no familiar living room surrounded him. Instead, John found himself smack dab in the middle of a forest straight out of one of those sword and sorcery flicks he used to watch late night while polishing off a sixer. The trees stood silent sentinel, branches twisting overhead like arthritic hands straining toward the night sky. His ears rang with the alien cacophony of insects and night birds. John dug his fingers into the rough bark of a nearby oak just to feel something real. Not possible, he whispered, voice cracking like a teenager mid-growth spurt. The rich loam of the forest floor chilled his bare feet. His thin pajamas left him shivering right down to the bone. John clenched his eyes shut and counted to 30, willing his mundane living room to reappear when he opened them again. But the scent of pine still filled his nostrils. He could taste the sweet coolness of the night air on his tongue. A twig snapped, and John spun around to see a hunched figure in robes not out of place at a Renaissance fair. The man held out a scroll that unfurled with a soft rustle. "Greetings, Sir Knight. I am Elias, gatekeeper of Eternia." The man's eyes shone with religious fervor. "Dark forces plague our land, but prophecy tells of a chosen hero who shall restore balance. And lo, the hero has come at last." John staggered backwards, half expecting diminutive fairies and dragons to emerge from the underbrush. He didn't want any part of prophecies or dark forces. He just wanted his gazebo recliner and a cold one to watch the game. With great reluctance, John accepted the scroll. In the moonlight, the intricate calligraphy seemed to shift into images of suffering. Bloody battlefields piled with bodies, villages alight with flames. John always considered himself more of a conscientious objector than a soldier, but as John ventured deeper into the misty woods, no path back appeared. He shuddered as the shadows seemed to cling to him, beg him not to leave. To turn back now would surely mean the end of everything. John soldiered onward, the crackling parchment gripped tight in one hand, his unfamiliar sword heavy in the other. He longed to wake up from this nightmare, yet something deeper called him forth. Destiny awaited down the shadowed path ahead, for better or for worse, and there was no turning back now. Chapter 2, Seeking Answers in Shadowfax Village. John blundered through the misty woods, cussing as gnarled roots continually snagged his feet. The ominous weight of the sword at his side served as a constant reminder of the so-called heroic quest ahead. As he walked, the chain-mail vest Elias had gifted him clinked softly, already chafing his paunch in new and unpleasant ways. "This is bull," John grumbled, swatting away a low-hanging branch. The rich scent of pine and loam told him this was no bourbon-soaked dream. At any moment, he expected a fire-breathing dragon to emerge overhead and crisply fry his hide. After what felt like hours of stumbling over rocks and sinkholes, the trees gradually gave way to gently rolling green hills dotted with mossy boulders. In the distance, atop a hill nestled snugly between the slopes, John spotted a small village of thatched-roof cottages, sending plumes of comforting smoke twisting skyward. John, stale tongue stuck to the roof of his mouth, thirstier than he'd ever been after even the fiercest college kegger. "Please let them have beer," he croaked to no one, quickening his pace. He could already taste the sweet relief of ale on his tongue. But as John drew closer, he saw no telephone poles or power lines leading to the cluster of simple dwellings. The villagers wore rough homespun clothes, toiling in the fields with hoes and ox-drawn plows. It was like stepping straight into the set of some medieval documentary on the old PBS. Wary eyes tracked John as he limped into the hard-backed dirt town square, no doubt looking every inch the awkward outsider in his mismatched old-world garb. He made straight for what appeared to be the village's only tavern, a cramped timber structure smelling strongly of old copper pennies and stale porridge. John careened through the doorway with all the grace of a woman off-key marching band, plopping onto the first vacant stool he spotted. He fished a gold coin from his belt pouch and slapped it onto the rough-hewn counter. "Barkeep, I'll take your finest ale and step on it." John's voice came out rough as sandpaper. The keep eyed John's address with suspicion, but wordlessly poured him a frothy tankard of deep amber liquid. John guzzled it down greedily between deep gasps of air. It sure as hell wasn't a Bud Light, but it took the edge off. As John nursed his second tankard, cheeks rosy with buzz, he regaled the fascinated patrons with the wild tale of waking up here from another world. But instead of sympathy, their faces reflected growing unease. He caught whispered snatches of witchcraft and dark prophecy. John sighed into his empty tankard. However, he had wound up in this medieval twilight zone. It seemed clear these superstitious villagers would be no help at all. If he ever wanted to find his way back home, he was on his own.